everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation, right here, TYT Nation. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf. Welcome. So, for the next hour, we're going to be going around the nation for some of the best stories and progressive political commentary that you can find across the on the web or around the nation. Hey, how about that? Anyway, we got a great show for you guys today. We've got some breakdown here. Hey, look, guess who's back? Hillary Clinton. Yeah. Oh. Nobody's happy that she is back and starting to get more involved in politics. Oh boy, here we go. And of course, she knows who to blame for her election loss. She talks about that. I'm going to point out the real problem in a couple of stories, actually. I'm going to explain how the Democrats are finding the answer, and it was right here all along. Because we've been saying, I've been saying on the show for probably the past year, 2 years, about the Democratic Party, about economics, about their message. And now we've got the Democratic Party. We have the Priorities Action USA, actually one of the biggest super PACs that supported the Democrats, saying the same thing, finally saying the same thing that I have been saying about the Democrats. And what are they going to do about it? Well, we've also got that. All right. So that's a great story. Some stuff that we didn't get to yesterday as well. Dianne Feinstein going after, well, not exactly going after single payer, but after she's went after single payer, surprise, surprise, she found herself raising money from the health insurance industry. Yay. And then we have an Alabama congressman talking about pre-existing conditions in the Trump care bill. That's from, of course, earlier. Trump versus the First Amendment. Lovely. That's a lovely story. And then, if we have time, gay conversion therapy. Very interesting stories that we have here today. I do apologize. I'm not feeling the greatest right now. So, I got like a pounding stuffed head, and it's awful. We are not winning here on the show today. I am not winning with my health. Too bad I no longer have health care. So, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Trump. Anyway, so before I get into the stories, before I get started, patrons, we got some new patrons over the last couple of days, so I want to, give you guys the shout outs. Michael Bascom, Enrique Portela, okay. I almost did an El Duende Chingon, which would be awesome if you were a patron. Anyway, we have Jackie Propura. I don't know if this is a real name or not, so bear with me. Snotty Prince Saint Cyr. Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate it. You're still awesome, so thank you. Maurice Harris, Addie Neal, Chris, and Chris Heimbuck. So thank you for being patrons. Patreon.com/TYTNation if you want to support independent progressive media. You know it means the world to me. And you know I love you guys for it. So I'm still thinking about what I'm going to do to put together for the bonus show of what you actually, like when I can actually do it is the number one question. And what you might want me to talk about. Because I have no idea, because I'm boring. Like, when I'm not doing the show, when I'm not talking politics, I'm usually just playing video games at home. So, like, I kind of have a boring life, but maybe I have some good stories that I want to share. And maybe, of course, we'll I want to talk about some news as well. So, there's that. Yeah, you might want to let me know what you think about that. But anyway, so we're going to start out here. We'll start out with Hillary Clinton coming back. So let's roll with that. And again, I am sorry because my head is killing me. Anyway, keeping it real, man. Keeping it real. All right. Now, Hillary Clinton is back, and she is now taking full responsibility for her loss in the 2016 election. Well, sort of. Maybe not really.
It wasn't a perfect campaign. There is no such thing. But I was on the way to winning until the combination of Jim Comey's letter on October 28th and Russian WikiLeaks raised doubts in the minds of people who were inclined to vote for me but got scared off. And the evidence for that intervening event is, I think, compelling, persuasive, and so we overcame a lot in the campaign. We overcame an enormous barrage of negativity, of false equivalency, and so much else. But as Nate Silver, who doesn't work for me, he's an independent analyst, but one considered to be very reliable, has concluded, if the election had been on October 27th, I'd be your president.
Oh boy. I mean, look, hey man, I'd be your president, but we had that Comey, we had that WikiLeaks, the damn WikiLeaks, man. The evidence, what's your evidence? Your evidence is compelling. What evidence? Nothing really concrete, just more of, well, but Nate Silver. Okay, well, look, hey, Nate Silver, I'm sure he realized that he undercounted possible new voters. The new voters that did turn out for Trump in those areas that she happened to lose. Also, the question for Hillary Clinton is, did WikiLeaks make you not campaign in Michigan and Wisconsin? Did Comey tell you to not campaign in Michigan and Wisconsin? No, it had nothing to do with that. But of course, here she was, man. No, Comey, WikiLeaks. No, that's why I lost. I totally take responsibility, though. No, you don't. Not at all. Again, the polls, right? Look, everybody knows now, and even we were misled by the polls. Okay, those polls were off because, again, they didn't take into account all the new excited voters. They looked at likely voters. They looked at voters that had participated in elections before. Now, Hillary Clinton, and we'll talk about this in another segment, she also counted on the Obama voters that voted for President Obama back in 2012 and 2008. Well, she didn't get those. In fact, she didn't get she got a lot of those, but she didn't get all of those. Okay, so there's that. Now, another reason that she was absolutely wrong and off base is that WikiLeaks and the Comey letter, they didn't scare off voters that were thinking of voting for you, but didn't. I mean, Hillary Clinton, she doesn't get to say that because she is the most well-known politician in America. Everybody knows the Clintons. Everybody knows who she is. Everybody knows what she's about because she's been in the public eye for, 3 decades now? A very, very, very long time. Again, everybody knows who she is. She's very high profile. She was at one point the First Lady of the United States. They know you. They know you. So you can't say that there are so many people out there that were like, I don't know who this Clinton is. I mean, I thought that I knew her, but oh man, here comes that WikiLeaks. Here comes that Comey letter. Ooh, that scared me off. I'm going to vote for this insane clown. No, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. Look, people, again, have known you. They've had an opinion of you for decades, Ran. WikiLeaks and Comey, that was not a significant factor into what you lost. Again, it was not going to those Rust Belt states and not focusing on the economy. Too many Americans right now believe that the Democratic Party and Hillary Clinton specifically, or the Clintons, only serve the richest Americans. They only serve the 1%. All WikiLeaks did was reinforce that. And also how they showed how the Democratic Party screwed over the one guy that actually was speaking to those Americans who were concerned about the economy, who were concerned about income inequality, Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders being the most popular politician in America. And you know why? It's not because he's like, the guy's like a frumpy socialist from Vermont. But it turns out people, when they heard his message, when they heard his policies, were like, damn, I can get behind those policies because guess what? They're not going to help the wealthy. They're going to help me. They're going to help my family. They're going to help people that I know. They're going to help most Americans. So let me give you an example. Single payer, which Hillary Clinton famously said, never going to happen. Over 80% of Democrats support that. And over half of all Americans support that. That includes a high majority of Republicans that support a single payer government option. Or I'm sorry, that support single payer Medicare for all and not a public option, not just a public option. Now, also living wage. Hillary Clinton, your campaign, said that $12 was enough. Not 15, 12. And she never really did go and back the Fight for 15 movement. She never walked out there with the unions. Bernie Sanders, however, he went out there and walked with the unions. All throughout the campaign, she decided not to support progressive change. The types of progressive policies that are wildly popular with the American people. So at best, you can say Hillary Clinton was just incredibly out of touch with everyday Americans, with everyday regular people. And look, that happens. You get put into this Washington bubble, and that's definitely where she's at. And even Barack Obama fell into that Washington bubble, that special interest bubble, that donor bubble. Okay? And they listen to their consultants, they listen to the donors, and they make decisions based on that, not on the American people. So, now, what is that old saying? And I love this. It's the economy, stupid. Now, who came up with that, by the way? That was James Carville. James Carville happened to have worked in Bill Clinton's campaign. So, that's the message, though. It's the economy, stupid. Well, guess what? Most of these Americans that voted against Hillary Clinton were voting because of economic issues. So, but they didn't talk about that. They didn't talk about how to fix that. They didn't have a vision. All she talked about was how bad of a person Donald Trump is. And don't get me wrong, Donald Trump is a bad person. But you can't run a campaign based on, hey, this guy sucks. How about that guy sucks, but you know what? His policies are worse. Here are my policies that are better. Here's my change. Here's what I'm going to bring to you. Here's a positive vision of America that I want to show to you guys. And I want you to vote for this because I want to do this for you. Instead of, I'm with her. Why aren't you with me? Why aren't you with me? You're supposed to be with us. Not us. We're not supposed to just be with you based on the simple fact that you're not Donald Trump. It's ridiculous. But, and not only that, of course, said she had no vision. Well, she had no vision because it was all about keeping the status quo the same. Well, she says, yes, yay, status quo. Let's keep everything the same. Obamacare is great. Maybe we'll make a couple of tweaks here down the road. Okay, that's a bit more of a popular position, but not a populist position. Not Medicare for all. We'll maybe regulate the banks a little bit more, which may or may not have happened, or may or may not would have. It's a possibility that it might have happened, but probably not. Although maybe she would have kept more regulation than Donald Trump had. I don't know. It's speculation at this point. But the point is that she ran on status quo is awesome. It's not awesome. It sucks. People hate it. That's why they voted against you. So don't go around and blame James Comey, who is, of course, he's a Republican hack, but nonetheless, the Comey letter or the WikiLeaks, right? And the Comey's letter, it was a bullshit political tactic. I talked about that. I don't deny that. He was clearly playing politics with it because he didn't actually have anything. But that's not even the reason that you lost. So that's not super important. So aside from everything else that I mentioned, the reason that she lost was hubris. That caused her, like WikiLeaks, as I said, didn't stop her from campaigning in Wisconsin and Michigan, from actually giving the campaign staff and the volunteers the resources that they needed to knock on doors. They didn't do that. Instead, they focused on campaigning the old way. Big money, television ads, voting or paying consultants lots and lots of money, and just essentially playing it the old way and the safe way. So, again, she had zero vision. Zero vision. Trump did not win this election. She lost it. It was hers to lose. And it turns out that a great deal of Obama voters did not vote for her. Or, look, some of them didn't even vote for Trump for that matter. And some who were anti-Trump didn't vote for him because they were pro-Trump. They voted against you. They were anti-Clinton. So there's that. Look, she's got to get it through her head, okay? Because if you don't learn from history, then you are doomed to repeat that history. Now, hopefully we don't have a repeat of Hillary Clinton running again, because good Lord, that would be a disaster. That would be Trump 2020, and we don't want that. Okay? And look, if they don't get their act together in the Democratic Party, we're going to look at more Republican wins in 2018 and Republican wins in 2020. So you've got to learn, okay? Your policies are better than Trump's. You just have to go out there. Your economic policy actually does work better than the Republicans. Go out and sell it. Go out and actually do it, and go out and actually adopt real progressive change. You do that, you're going to actually win. And if you don't want to win, if you want to continue losing, then please continue going the same on the same road with the same course. I guarantee you're never going to win unless you actually start being populist progressive. Okay. And now to get into a little bit more detail into that, we have next story, which is Obama voters going to Donald Trump and why. And the Democratic Party is still busy trying to figure out why Hillary Clinton lost, and they're now focusing specifically on voters who had once voted for Barack Obama and the Democrats in 2012, but had switched over to Donald Trump or just not voted at all. Now, this comes from the Washington Post, and Philip Bump had talked to some different top Democratic pollsters that were trying to figure this out. And they did so by conducting private focus groups and, polling to try to figure out what the hell they did wrong. This is part of course, their post-mortem. Now, interestingly enough, I was talking about this, right? I was talking about the answers to these questions of why the Democrats continue to lose way before the election was even over. I mean, you can go back and look at some of my videos during the primary, during the election campaign, where I've been critical of Hillary Clinton and her lack of message. Because it turns out that the whole reason that Hillary Clinton lost is kind of a central theme of the show. So let's see what they found so you can get an idea what I'm talking about. A shockingly large percentage of these Obama-Trump voters said the Democrats' economic policies will favor the wealthy. Twice the percentage said the same about Trump. Now look, that is not necessarily true. So let's do a little breakdown, a little comparison of the policies between Trump and between the Democrats. For example, on issues like the minimum wage, Democrats are way better than the Republicans. See, Republicans, and even Trump himself said, I think the minimum wage is too high. I want to leave it to the states. I want to get rid of it. So he flip-flops on this. There are a lot of Republicans that are like, no, let's get rid of the minimum wage. Gone. We don't like the fact that you can have a minimum standard of living. We want to pay you less. We want our corporate donors to pay you as little as humanly possible. Really. Now, the Democrats, however, well, they're better. First, of course, remember Barack Obama said, okay, let's raise it to 10-10. Because right now it's at $7.25. That is as Bernie Sanders puts it, a starvation wage. All right. So 10-10, pretty popular, right? but not popular enough. $12. Hillary Clinton ran on $12. And a lot of Democrats were like, okay, let's go with 12. Now, some Democratic politicians have actually moved past that and decided to back a $15 minimum wage, even in places like, you have like Portland, you have California that passed $15 minimum wage, New York, I believe. So there is examples of progressive policy, okay, that Democrats have adopted. Republicans, you don't see Republicans doing that. So there's a big difference in policy. The policies of the minimum wage does help regular people. Rich people hate it. Now, healthcare, for example, is also something different. Most Democrats think, well, hey, we need something. The status quo before the ACA wasn't working. Let's use the ACA and let's actually expand it. Let's fix it, right? Okay. Now, Republicans, however, let's roll it back to before the ACA when everything was awesome. Repeal and replace. Or, I mean, you can even look at Trump Care. That's the GOP plan. And it's the one that they had to hastily put together because actually the ACA was the original Republican plan. The real progressive plan is Medicare for all. And now you have, of course, some Democrats coming around to it, others that are not. Now, that shows that there are, of course, significant differences between Democrats and Democrats and Republicans, and even Republicans and Trump. For example, there are a lot of Republicans that were in favor of the TPP. Donald Trump was not. Bernie Sanders also was not in favor of the TPP, whereas you had Obama and a lot of the establishment Democrats that were in favor of it. So again, there's a lot of differences here. Now, but see, I know I can sit here and spout off these differences all day because there are a lot. And on a lot of policy, Democrats are better. But see, it's not so much about the facts, unfortunately. It is about the perception. And the perception now is that the Democrats are in the pocket of the wealthy. And it's not exactly unfounded, as I've talked about before in the show. Now, what they found in this survey when they talked to regular people is pretty disastrous for the Democrats. Now, this was done by Priority USA, right? But that was a super PAC that worked to try to elect Hillary Clinton and even Barack Obama. So this was their super PAC that they used, right? Now, it conducted focus groups of these Obama-Trump voters in places like Wisconsin and Michigan, places where Donald Trump had lost the working class. Or I'm sorry, Hillary Clinton lost the working class. Donald Trump had picked them up. Now, they polled some 800 Obama-Trump voters nationally at around the same time. The pollsters also conducted focus groups with the so-called drop-off voters, people who voted for Obama in 2012 but did not vote in 2016 in the same states, and polled 800 drop-off voters nationally. So, okay, a lot of these were Trump voters who were former Obama voters. These are not hardcore conservatives. These are not super right-wingers. These are not part of the hardcore MAGA crowd, right? These are people that voted for President Barack Obama because they believed in the message of hope and change. They wanted to get things better for the economy. Okay. Now, they found out that Hillary Clinton and Democrats' economic message did not break through to those drop-off or Obama-Trump voters, even though drop-off voters were still decidedly anti-Trump. Now, that's important. These drop-off voters, they hated Trump. They're like, no, we're not even going to go there. But Hillary Clinton, we're also not going to go there. We don't think the Democrats, or we don't think Hillary Clinton specifically, or her vision, coincided with economic growth, with our own economic well-being. We don't agree with that. We believe that the status quo is harmful, but we also think that Donald Trump's insane. So we're not going to go there. So we're just not going to vote at all. Now, they could not believe that the Democrats would put up somebody who was the face of the status quo that has been crushing them. So they didn't want to vote for that. Now, why do I come to that conclusion instead of what's widely cited as sexism or Comey or WikiLeaks, stuff that the Democratic Party has been trying to blame on this loss. Well, the poll found that Obama-Trump voters, many of whom were working-class white people and were pivotal to Trump's victory, were economically losing ground and are skeptical of Democratic solutions to their problems. Now, I want to note, Democratic solutions, not progressive solutions, which actually tend to go a little further. Right now, the Democratic Party is stuck in a bit of neoliberalism, which is still better than being super hard right. But it continues the status quo, which has not been helping them. Like, let me give you an example. ACA has been a big step in healthcare, but it even has its problems. For example, high deductibles and higher premiums. That has been a problem for a lot of people. You can get an insurance plan, but if you have a high deductible, you can't exactly use that. So that's one of the issues facing a lot of voters. And look, there was also the mandate that was unpopular, and I understand why. But I also, and you've heard me talk about this before, or if you've heard me talk about this before, you know that I'm in favor of a mandate because that's actually how the damn thing actually is supposed to work. So, again, on those issues, right? Now, if you go in a more progressive direction, you're going to go for a living wage. You're going to go for Medicare for all. You're going to go for reducing student loan debt by making sure that people can go to college without amassing such amounts of debt. So more results, right? 50% of Obama-Trump voters said their incomes are falling behind the cost of living. Another 31% said their incomes are merely keeping pace with the cost of living. Again, that is a good case for a living wage. Why not come out behind that? Why instead? Well, no, $12, and I'm not going to actually fight for 15. That's a stupid mistake. Boneheaded. Now, not only that, but here's one of the more interesting parts. A sizable chunk of Obama-Trump voters, 30%, said their vote was for Trump was more a vote against Clinton than a vote for Trump. Now that's fascinating. Nearly a third said, "Man, you know what? I'm voting for Trump not because I like Trump. The guy's a moron, but I really despise Clinton. I can't vote for her. I have to vote against her." Wow. And look, I don't think it's necessarily 100% just against her. I think it's against the establishment and what she represented. Now, undoubtedly, some people like Peter Dow or whatever, they're going to take this and be like, they voted against her because she was a woman. Sexism. Not necessarily, because it doesn't match anything else. Again, what we've looked at is economic policy. And Hillary Clinton, unfortunately, is somebody who backs neoliberal corporate economic policies. So, I think, again, this is a vote against what she represented, Wall Street, the elites, the banks, and the giant multinational corporations. And not necessarily herself, because again, you put up somebody who has those same corporate positions and who's been outed, I don't think you're going to get a better result. You run a corporate establishment person against a populist, that populist is going to win because guess what? They're using populism. They're using things that are popular. That's the whole point of being a populist. But anyway, now, to further prove my point, here are more numbers. 42% of Obama-Trump voters said congressional Democrats' economic policies favor the wealthy, versus only 21% who said the same about Trump. 40% say that about congressional Republicans as well. So don't think that the Republicans are also trusted. It was more of Trump trying to sell himself as a economic populist, which he was not. Clearly, he was a con man. He was a snake oil salesman, and I've been saying that since day one as well. But this is basically, it was a vote against the establishment. Okay? A lot of people, they looked at the establishment and said, you all favor the richest among us, which isn't necessarily false. That is very true, I believe. Now, and look, you got to look at how sad that is, by the way. We know the Republicans are 100% owned by corporations, by the rich. And again, all their policies seem to reflect that, and I talk about those on the show all the time. But the Democrats, sadly, are considered even more for the wealthy, and that is an absolute abysmal failure. A failure of messaging, because again, I could point out different policies where the Democrats are actually much better than the Republicans. And yet at the same time, that public perception is that the Democrats are now more in favor of the wealthy than the Republicans, which isn't true. Now, a total of 77% of Obama-Trump voters said Trump's policies will favor some mix of all classes. Again, that was completely false. They were wrong about that. While a total of 58% said that about congressional Democrats. Now, Trump, unfortunately, he does favor the wealthy because he is wealthy. But on the economic level, he was able to speak to some people, albeit at a third grade level, but he did speak to them. Now, Guy Cecil, chairman of Priorities USA, told the Washington Post after these results, he said, if you felt like your life wasn't getting better over 8 years, which is over the Obama presidency, where, to be fair, he faced unprecedented obstruction for a majority of his presidency, and that's not his fault, but he certainly could have used the bully pulpit a little harder. So to try and fight against that, because again, that leads to the perception. The fact that Obama did not grab his walking shoes and walk with the unions, the fact that he did not use the bully pulpit as effectively as I believe he should have to hammer the Republicans on their obstruction, and also making deals that actually gave more tax cuts to rich people, making 98% of the Bush tax cuts permanent. Well, that doesn't really add to the optics of, hey, I'm for regular people. So that definitely hurt the Democrats. But again, you can't ascribe all of that to President Obama because, again, saying that it's all his fault is kind of unfair considering the massive amounts of obstruction he had faced from the Republicans. But there are things that he could have done to at least change those optics. Now, certainly a subset of these voters, Cecil continues, were responsive to what Trump was selling them on immigration. But you had a lot of consistency with the Obama-Trump voters in terms of the severe economic anxiety that they face. And again, there are reasons for that anxiety. Lower, stagnating wages, lower standards of living. Middle class has been essentially squeezed by outsourcing, automation. Look, there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of reasons for that anxiety. And by the way, it's not just white people. Black people work too. Latinos work too. Women. We're all affected by all of these. It's not just white working class people that are affected by economic downturns. In fact, African American families have lost even more wealth under Obama than white people because of those same neoliberal economic policies. So now the poll also found that 43% of drop-off voters said their income is also falling behind the cost of living. And another 49% said those incomes were merely keeping pace. There's a lot of commonalities between these drop-off voters and the Obama-Trump voters, Cecil said. And so who do they blame? Well, they blame the rich. And again, going back to the earlier part of the poll, who do they think the Democrats stand for? In one of the focus groups, Obama-Trump voters were asked what Democrats stand for and gave answers such as these. Quote, the 1%, the status quo. They're for the party, themselves, and the party. One woman asked whether the Democratic Party is for people like her, flatly declared, nope. Damn. Based on this, of course, the Democrats, Cecil acknowledged that the Democrats, quote, clearly had a lot of work to do. No kidding. When you're getting answers like that, hey, who does the Democratic Party represent? The 1%, the party and only the party. Well, we can definitely point to instances where that seems to be true. Now, Cecil also pointed out the fact that Democrats kind of have a Wall Street problem. And this was asked by Philip Bump. Now, in response to a question, Cecil pointed out that Democrats favor far more in the way of Wall Street oversight and accountability than Republicans do, and that, of course, is true. But he acknowledged that the Democrats must do more to take on Wall Street and said the party should represent a substantially more ambitious economic agenda. Quote, the deck is stacked against most Americans in many ways. Pharmaceutical companies that gouge consumers, for-profit prisons that abuse inmates and do nothing to reform them, for-profit colleges that offer false hopes and incredible amounts of debt. Democrats must take on these systemic problems, and we must name names. The second part of the argument must include a real forward-looking economic plan that does more than rehash the same four policy proposals from the last 20 years. How do we deal with automation and huge company mergers? What do we do to address the opportunity deserts in rural and urban areas where the real investment is almost impossible to find? So, basically, you mean like some of the policies put forward by Bernie Sanders. Now, for example, you could solve that college problem by making tuition free, right? How about creating jobs in some of these places that don't have opportunity? Well, you could invest in the infrastructure in these areas and build them up. Build up rural areas. How about create a green energy revolution? Or do what Jill Stein says, a Green New Deal. Do all these things. You could invest. I mean, look, you don't need a big city to put up a wind farm. All you need is wind. Well, there's a lot of rural areas that have plenty of wind that you can harness for energy. And building that infrastructure out will actually help create jobs and create opportunity, and maybe you could build some businesses around that. So, but look, that sounds kind of like a plan that I could get behind and that the American people could get behind. Sounds great. Now, unfortunately, the poll or the post doesn't say anything about the fact that Bernie Sanders' platform already calls for a lot of this stuff. Instead, they say, to win back cautious Trump supporters, we should tie Trump to GOP policies that put the interests of the wealthy businesses before the middle class and programs they rely on. Now, I'm not saying that that isn't a bad idea. That's a great idea. And I support that. But maybe they should also continue to push these policies, these incredibly popular progressive policies, in an agenda. Again, poll after poll, issue after issue, progressive priorities win. Because they don't just favor the wealthy, because they actually help all Americans. If you do that, if you run on progressive priorities, there's a good chance that you're going to win. However, if you keep going down the same path of neoliberalism and don't learn your lessons from the past, then you're going to keep losing to people like Donald Trump and like the Republicans. Okay. Okay. Let's move on to actually healthcare. Yeah. Just trying to figure out what I want to do. And again, my head is pounding. So I am not winning right now. All right. A little more than a week after Senator Dianne Feinstein told her constituents at a recent San Francisco town hall that she was not ready to support single-payer health care. Oh, man, I am not ready to support health care because I think it's a government takeover. I'm not in favor of that. Well, it's funny. Right after that, she ended up being found at a fundraiser thrown by health insurance lobbyists. I wonder where she got that opinion. Now, she said, and this made big headlines, of course, if single-payer healthcare is going to mean corporate takeover by the government of all healthcare, I am not there yet. Well, of course you're not there yet, because we just found you at a fundraiser thrown by health insurance lobbyists. And by the way, that doesn't even exist. Medicare for All is not a government takeover of what single-payer. It's not. It's not. That doesn't exist, okay? Literally, what you're doing when you're doing single-payer healthcare is just getting rid of the middlemen, which are insurance companies. Instead of paying premiums for an insurance company that skims that money off the top and then pays the doctors in the hospitals Well, the government takes the money and pays the hospital and the doctor. Wow, that seems more efficient. And guess what? When it's more efficient, you get rid of the bureaucracy and the profit motive. It's going to be cheaper for you, and you're going to get more bang for your buck. That's what single-payer healthcare is about. Again, she doesn't get it, but maybe of course she gets it. She knows what this is about. She's not stupid. She's paid to not understand it. She's paid to not get it. Now, this fundraising event I mentioned was at the Washington, D.C. Office of Avenue Solutions. Now, that is a lobbying firm that just happens to represent major health insurers, pharmaceutical companies, and it's the primary trade association for doctors. Now, these industries, of course, have historically opposed any effort to create a universal government-funded healthcare system. Again, I wonder why. Oh, right, of course, their entire business model is based on private insurance. Yeah. Okay. Now, the kind of system, by the way, that is supported by 58% of adults. Feinstein's supporters at the event were expected to kick in $1,000 to $5,000 for a re-election bid. So, okay. So, most Americans, again, 58% of Americans are in favor of single payer. She goes to an event where she's paid $1,000 to $5,000 by insurance lobbyists for her re-election bid. That's how much to get in the door. You think a regular person that needs Medicare for all is going to get in that door? No. They're not. They're not going to get in the door. All this is why is happening while California is still debating their own single-payer bill. Now, I think that would be amazing, and the reason is if there's a single-payer healthcare bill that gets passed in a big state like California or New York or even Vermont, which isn't a big state, I realize, but it doesn't matter what state does it. If one state does it, then I think that's going to it's going to be the first domino to fall. And it's basically going to be a game changer. It will revolutionize the way healthcare is delivered. Because once people live under a single payer system, they're going to realize that, hey, it's actually pretty damn good. I don't have to worry about premiums. I don't have to worry about, any of this other stuff, dealing with the insurance company. I go in, I get my health care, and I don't have to pay anything out of pocket. That's awesome. How do I pay for it? Well, it gets paid for through my taxes. Yes, my taxes might go up just a little bit, but then I save all this money on premiums. And without all that bureaucracy, you end up saving more money and getting more healthcare bang for your buck. So, man, once it wins, you're going to see the dominoes. And so they're really, really trying to do that. Now, of course, the insurance companies, they hate this. They lobby every time this pops up in a different state. Take Colorado, for example. The health insurance lobbyists will literally, in these associations, these groups, will lie about it. They'll lie. They'll do TV ads, television ads that are saying, oh, my God, it's going to take over your health care. You're going to have huge waiting lines. You're not going to be able to get care. It's rationing. They'll come up with all this bullshit and to try to get you to vote against it. And unfortunately, that's what they did in Colorado and what they did in Vermont. They have billions of dollars at stake. They're going to throw everything that they can at this. And they've already begun in California. And look, they're giving money to Dianne Feinstein. Now, Feinstein, according to campaign finance data, lobbyists and political action committees have given at least $592,000 to her re-election campaign. That is more than a third of what she's raised in total donations. That is a lot of money. Feinstein's campaign committee received $822,000 in donations between January and March. Lobbyists accounted for at least $20,700 in political action committees. Political action committees also gave more than $160,000 to her re-election campaign. Now, many more of those people, these lobbyists, these donors, are from people that are just related to the healthcare industry. Recent donors to Feinstein include former Democratic Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle. Now, Daschle happens to be a registered lobbyist for Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association. Oh, of course, a health insurance company. Brian Griffin, who represents the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America, and Fred Graff. Fred Grafe. That was my gaff. Who lobbies for the Federation of American Hospitals. Now, these companies and these lobbyists, well, they are lobbying in favor of these associations that make all this money on for-profit healthcare. That's what's going on here. Now, she also received donations from political action committees run by and pharmaceutical companies Merck & Co., Amgen, and AbbVie. And during her last campaign, she raised about $10 million back in 2012. The lobbying industry happened to be her fifth largest source of campaign revenue. According to data compiled by the Center for Responsive Politics, it accounted for almost $325,000 of her fundraising during the contest. So look, she is backed by the health insurance industry. Of course she's going to say, well, I'm not in favor of government takeover of healthcare because that's what I think single payer is. No, you don't think that at all. You're paid to think that. You're paid to say that. You get your money, your donations from these industries, and these industries want to destroy single payer. They hate the idea of universal health care. They don't want you to have it. What they want you to do is to continue to pay these rates to insurance companies so that they can continue to make more money. That's what this is about. Okay? Now, there are a couple of options here. Number one, you try to get her to change her mind. Fat chance of that. Hey, you're more than happy to try. You call her, write her, say, hey, support Medicare for all. It's what Californians want. You're supposed to represent us. And number two, primary your ass, which is the option that I tend to favor. You put up a primary challenger that supports something that 80% of Democrats are in favor of. Oh, man. You do that, and you might actually win. And you might actually win without having to take all that corporate money. Now, we know the corporations, the health insurance companies, they're going to do everything in their power to try to stop this. But at some point, you cannot stop the will of the people. Again, majority of Americans are in favor of single-payer health care. They want Medicare for all. They know it's a better option. And at some point, one of these states, whether it be California, whether it be, they try it somewhere else like New Jersey or wherever, one of these states is going to do this, and it's going to be the catalyst. It's going to happen almost just like marijuana laws. Okay, we've got some states that are continuing to legalize recreational marijuana. California was the newest one. And the dominoes will continue to fall until it forces the federal government, to do something. So it's only a matter of time. Single payer is the future. It's going to happen whether or not people like Dianne Feinstein want it to or not. Okay. One more health-related story. Seems to be a topic today. All right. If there were an award for Douchebag of the Year, one of my nominees might be none other than Alabama's finest representative, Mo Brooks. During an interview with CNN's Jake Tapper on Monday, he claimed that good people don't get pre-existing conditions.
People with pre-existing conditions will be protected. Insurance companies will not be allowed to deny them coverage. But my understanding is, as you just mentioned, this new legislation would allow states to opt out and allow insurance companies to refuse to sell insurance to people with pre-existing conditions as long as there's some setup for them, pools of some sort. Is the president sending a message to Congress to change that provision, or did he not understand what was in the bill?
Well, that's not my understanding of the way the bill has been reframed. My understanding is that it will allow insurance companies to require people who have higher health care costs to contribute more to the insurance pool that helps offset all these costs, thereby reducing the cost to those people who lead good lives, they're healthy, they've done the things to keep their bodies healthy, and right now those are the people who've done things the right way that are seeing their costs skyrocketing.
Whoa, hold on there for a minute there, bud. Hey, man, these people, they live good lives. They did everything they could to remain healthy. All right, well, hey, great for them. You know what actually helps people do that? Affordable health care. Just saying. And look, if you're going to be incredibly generous, which I guess I am feeling today, you could say that, come on, man, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily a bad person or a terrible person if you aren't one of those people, if you have a pre-existing condition. Well, okay, again, super generous, but you also have to realize there are people who do see it that way. That say that, hey, man, if you do all the right things, well, you're not going to get a pre-existing condition. It's only those people who are lazy or mistreat themselves, or people who are eat too much and they're gluttonous and they get the diabetes from being too fat, something like that. Right? There are people who out there who believe that. And I shouldn't have to pay more to subsidize your fat lifestyle. Well, hey, again, people do see it that way. I don't agree. And look, there's factual evidence for that too. People who are healthy can get diabetes. You have children that get diabetes. That is a pre-existing condition. For example, I have an anecdote here. My cousin. Now, my cousin, to give you a little information, a little context, this person was a fitness trainer. I had a cousin that's a fitness trainer who was out in California for a while. Guy was in great shape. Obviously, you have to be in good shape to be a fitness trainer. Now, out of nowhere, he developed type 2 diabetes. That illness, that diagnosis, destroyed his marriage and his career. That was through no fault of his own. It's not like he was a bad person, okay? And now on top of that, he's got a pre-existing condition. Well, that sucks. Again, now if without the ACA, he wouldn't be able to get health insurance to take care of himself because, again, he's got that pre-existing condition. Another example. You guys have probably seen the Jimmy Kimmel monologue, right? About his son being born with a heart defect. Well, to go against Mo Brooks, that child didn't even have a chance to lead a good life, to do any of the things right that he says to make sure that you're healthy. You know why? Because he was just born. He's a baby. Obviously, he has no control over that. Okay, the situations like these happen to millions of people. Those are the people that are going to be impacted by Mo Brooks, because he's part of the Freedom Caucus, their change to the ACA to give it to the states to say whether or not they will allow pre-existing conditions to be covered. They will mandate, right? Now, to be fair, Brooke knew he kind of stepped in it earlier, and he said this.
Now, in fairness, a lot of these people with pre-existing conditions, they have those conditions through no fault of their own. And I think our society under those circumstances needs to help. The challenge, though, is that it's a tough balancing act between the higher cost of these mandates, which denies people coverage because they can't afford the health insurance policies anymore on the one hand, and having enough coverage to help those people who are truly in need. And it's a very complicated question, and I'm sure over the years there'll be different permutations of it, both in the past and as we go forward.
Oh, well, yeah, okay, it's a complicated question, but it happens to have a pretty simple answer. You know what that answer is? Medicare for all. That would actually make sure that people would pay less, because they would be paying from their taxes and not be paying for health insurance premiums that would, some of that go to profits for CEOs and advertising, etc. And everybody would be covered. You wouldn't have to worry about pre-existing conditions. Everyone's covered. See, we spend more on healthcare already than any country in the world. Because I know, and the reason that I say that is because, of course, you're going to run into people that are like, how are we going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for this healthcare for everybody? We can't afford it. Says people who, of course, want to give more money to the military. No, we actually can afford it. It is more affordable because right now we already spend more than any other country per capita. You understand? We can actually reduce those costs and cover more people by eliminating the insurance companies and their overheads and actually being able to negotiate with doctors and hospitals and pharmaceutical companies for cheaper drugs and cheaper services. You know why? Because when you give the power to the government to negotiate prices, they're going to negotiate lower in order to save money. Just saying. Now, again, Medicare for all on pre-existing conditions, again, there's not even a question. Of course it's going to protect people with pre-existing conditions. It's going to protect everyone. Now, again, when we're talking about price, remember, this is life or death, right? This is healthcare. And not to mention quality of life. Cost should not be a main factor. Most Americans do want the government to guarantee coverage for pre-existing conditions. And according to a recent Morning Consult poll, by the way, 52% of Democrats and 48% of Republicans allow the new ACA provisions, or AHCA provisions, to allow states to opt out of requiring insurance companies to cover pre-existing conditions. They're against that. They want to save those protections for pre-existing conditions. Again, a majority of Republicans are like, don't let the states be allowed to opt out. Don't. Just don't. And not only that, on Medicare for all, over half of all Americans support, the idea that government-funded health care should be something that the government provides. Now, they want the government to be able to provide health care for everyone, not just the good people, as Mo Brooks put it, but to everyone. It's time we move past this for-profit healthcare system and actually go into a healthcare system that helps all Americans. All Americans, not just, again, the good ones. Okay? All right. I think that's it. That's all I'm going to do today. We'll be back. We've got some good stories for tomorrow. I do apologize. But again, I'm not feeling so well. So I'm going to go, I'm going to chill out, maybe try and take some aspirin or something. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Thank you so much for going around the nation with me today. We'll have another great show tomorrow. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Please like and share the videos. And of course the clips that I put up later in the day. Patrons, of course, will get this full show that they can watch at any time. Patreon.com/TYTNation if you want to become a patron and help out independent progressive media. Thank you so much to everybody who has donated already, who keeps us afloat, keeps us going. Thank you so much. We're going to continue to try to raise money through Patreon and really make this show dependent on you guys and not YouTube. So thank you, everybody. Love you guys. Have an awesome evening. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.